The road is kind. It bends and twists, but keeps in mind. Each step we take is not alone. We're carving trails in dust and stone. Hands that give will never empty. Hearts that serve will never fade. These are the paths we walk together. Oh, through storms and sun and every weather. Oh, we gather close, we rise, we fall. But love, it binds us all.
Hey, like Brett said, let's go. Hey, everybody, great to be here with you today. Happy Sunday. Looking a little brighter, a little peppier in your step. This is how it goes when you get a free extra hour of sleep. So welcome to those in the room, online, in our overflow room. Of course, we know you're there. If you're here, you're brand new, first time, 50th time, you could not have picked a better Sunday to be here, and I think you'll see why before we are through. So let me kick things off in light of our new series with a series of questions. Here we go. Have you ever felt left out? Yeah, sure you have. I remember being left off the baseball all-star team at age 12 when I felt like I really should have made it. That was tough. You're like, oh. Yeah. Have you ever felt overlooked? Sure. Maybe you weren't chosen for a job you felt like you really deserved. That was painful, perhaps. You ever felt left behind by a group or by a system? I think we all have, and I think that's something important to talk about, which is why we're doing something in particular for this month called the Belonging Project. We're looking at 4 pathways to create connection. And the reason I think this is so important to look at while we're doing this is because our greatest needs in life aren't just food, sleep, water, and shelter. They aren't just physical or even spiritual. They're also emotional. Also emotional. You could argue, many have, that our greatest need as humans after basic survival is the need to belong. Research from Cornell University shows that students who feel they belong do better in school. The Wall Street Journal concluded that the most successful companies who have employees with the highest sense of engagement, are those who give people a sense of belonging. Now, a study by LinkedIn shows it all comes down to one factor, the factor of being seen. Belonging boils down to being seen, but let's just acknowledge right now that being seen, or rather we should say feeling seen, is really just that. It's a feeling. Because feeling seen is not always based on the fact of being seen, if you really are seen. I mean, for example, think of the professional athlete who signs like the multi-gazillion-dollar contract. She is the highest paid person at his position on the top team in the top market. They are the talk of the town, and then somehow they take their talents and go to another team elsewhere, and you ask them why. They say, well, my talents weren't recognized, or they say, I just didn't feel wanted or seen. You're like, it doesn't make sense. And of course, you're right, it doesn't, because feelings, not facts, are at the bottom of belonging. Feelings, not facts, are at the bottom of belonging, which lets us know that sometimes it's not necessarily others that have caused that left behind feeling, have created that gap between you and someone else. Sometimes it just might be yourself. I mean, sometimes it might be our own patterns, our own pride, our own past, our own trauma, our own tendencies, our own ways of rolling in the world that blinds us to our own behavior. And sometimes the gap between us and others is something that's a little more locked from the inside than we might want to admit. Sometimes people may move toward us to close the gap, but then they can't. And maybe, just maybe, if all the facts were laid out there, present you might just feel differently about past you, because you really can be seen and still not feel seen. But that's definitely not all the time. Sometimes, while it is us that causes a lack of belonging, sometimes it really is a group. Sometimes it really is a system. Sometimes it really is those in power. But either way, whether their fault or ours, what are we going to do about it? How can we act? How should we act? Here's a crazy question. How does Jesus of Nazareth affirm we can act in a system, even when that group or system leaves us behind? Here's my question. How can we experience belonging even when belonging hasn't been created for us? How can we experience arguably our deepest need in life even when space for that need hasn't been created for us? Now, there's a twice told story in the Gospels I think gives us a massive clue on how we can do that. And here's what's so amazing about this, and what I hope you'll see today is this, is that when we create belonging for others, we often find that belonging is created for us. When we create belonging for others, we often find belonging is created for us. And therefore, maybe, just maybe, the conversation about belonging should be less about what others do for us and more about what we create for others. Maybe, just maybe, this conversation about belonging should turn more towards what we can control and less about what we can't. Now, here in Mark chapter 12, we're going to see Jesus of Nazareth is nearing the end of his life. This is the last week of his life. He's arrived in Jerusalem. These are the last few days of his journey towards the cross. And here he goes to the Jewish temple. Chapter 11, Mark 11 tells us that he was walking in the temple courts. And as Jesus is walking in the temple courts, he begins to take it all in one last time. And as he walks, as he goes around, as he sees the temple, he begins to pick up on some patterns of behavior, some ways of leading that unfortunately were all too common in his day. And what's even sadder about it is some ways of living and leading that can still be all too, unfortunately, common in our own day. And so Jesus, as he picks up on these things, as he's walking around the temple, as he's noticing the ways some faith leaders behave, he begins to talk not to them, not to the bad actors, but he begins to speak to his own believers. What he's about to say next is less a rebuke for them out there and more a warning for us in here. He says this to all those who would follow him. Verse 38, chapter 12. He says, "Watch out for the teachers of the law. They like to walk around in flowing robes and be greeted with respect in the marketplaces." Now, full disclosure, I read this, studied this last week, and I full on had a thought, you know what, maybe for an object lesson, I should wear a long flowing robe. I could just walk up here. And it was got to get weird in the parking lot on the way in, so I decided not to do that. But you get the point. He's saying some teachers, some faith leaders go into ministry. They even go to school. They get an education, not to honor God, but to get respect, not to show God off, but to show themselves off. Now, I'm so thankful for my title. I believe in Christian education. I almost wrecked my health and my marriage to get a doctorate, but I'm far more thankful for my seminary professors who over and over repeated to me the importance of remembering this, that being a doctor, it's my title of the church, doesn't mean being a leader of the church or a critic of the church or a cynic of the church or sitting in judgment on the church, but being a healer of and a caretaker for the church of Jesus. And they reminded us about this repeatedly because it's so easy to forget, which is why Jesus goes on. Verse 39, he says, these folks, they like to have the most important seats in the synagogues and the places of honor at banquets. Now, I think what's so interesting about this is, you come to this place in Jesus' ministry in the Gospels, you've seen, man, he's talked about this repeatedly. He's given insider information to his disciples about this same topic over and over. So why is he teaching on it yet again? I think it's because he knows what we can't forget, which is this, that the human heart can often begin by looking to create belonging for others, but end up arranging a me first or else seating chart in life. We forget about creating seats in synagogues for others. We fail to create belonging at banquets for others. And when we do that, sometimes it even gets worse. He goes on, they devour, he said, widows' houses, and for a show make lengthy prayers. One commentator noted that it was the custom of wealthy widows in that day to invite in teachers of the law, invite in scribes after their husbands would pass to show them hospitality. And Jesus, having observed this practice up close, now begins to question these leaders' motives. He says, they're only doing it to get the widow's money. They're only in there to get the poor lady's money after their husbands have passed. They're scammers. They're con men. Don't be fooled by their fancy prayers. They are religious imposters for the sake of financial gain, which is why he ends with a pronouncement of judgment. He says, these men will be punished. How? Most severely. In other words, as my Southern grandmother used to say, God rest her soul, no one gets away with nothing. They're punished most severely. How? Commentators know there's a historical judgment and a future eschatological punishment because, commentators also tell you, a few decades from this moment, the Jewish temple would be destroyed. These men's jobs would likely go away, in part due to their own behavior. God brought judgment on that temple. Their own punishment came when their jobs would end, and in the future, before the judgment seat of Christ, they would stand and have to give an account for their own behavior. They'd be punished in the present. They'd be punished in the future. They would be punished most severely. Don't you just love Jesus of Nazareth? Oh, meek and mild, gentle, calm, never probably, no, he did get angry. He notices how belonging is squeezed out. And he calls it out. And then, though, something amazing happens next. Verse 41 says, Jesus sat down opposite the place where the offerings were put and watched the crowd putting their money into the temple treasury. Now, Luke's gospel tells the same story, but includes an important little detail. It says that Jesus not only watched, like Mark tells you, but Luke tells you Jesus looked up. He not only watched out, but he looked up. Why did he look up? Well, he's sitting in a place here called the Court of the Women. It's also named the Middle Court. This was the farthest place that women could go in the Jewish temple, and the place where the Jewish treasury was also kept. It was called the Hall of the Treasury. And so Jesus sits down here in this subsection of the Court of Women, and he had to look up because the place to give an offering was raised on an elevated platform roughly 10 feet off the ground. And so Jesus watches now as some, wearing their long flowing robes, mounts the stairs. They walk up in full view of all, and they drop their offering, their giving, into one of two funnel-shaped containers. And because the value of money back then was not in banks, but in the weight of the coin itself, the heavier the coin was, the more noise the coin would make as it made its way down the funnel to the bottom, and the more you got noticed from the crowd. And Jesus sits and he watches people's motives as they give, as noise and fanfare and honor is given to the givers who made the most noise about what they gave. And as those who made the noise on the platform walked their way down the stairs, one woman across the room from Jesus, across the room from his disciples, with no way of knowing he was watching her, she begins to walk up the stairs and take her turn to give. And she does this, verse 42, but a poor widow came and put in 2 very small copper coins, worth only a few cents. Now, can you imagine, perhaps, the shame she might have felt? Those rich people's coins, man, they sure made a lot of money, but her lepta duo, her 2 small coins, or as it's also known now, her widow's mite, was worth about 1/10 of a day laborer's wage, perhaps a few dollars in today's currency. Whew, she drops her 2 tiny coins, both the size of about your pinky nail, down the funnel into the bottom, destined to be a forgotten gift by a forgotten person, forgotten by her system, faith community, society, and she walks back down the stairs, perhaps even feeling unseen and forgotten by God. Let me ask you, do you think she really was forgotten by God? You say no. What about you? Do you think you're forgotten by God? Now look at what Jesus says. Look here at what gets the attention of the Son of God. Oh, it's not something big, but it's something small. Not something recognized, it's something forgotten. It's not the haves, but the have not who gets his attention. It says he calls his disciples to him. I love this. It's like Jesus sees something that he just can't let go of. He sees something so important. He's not going to let the moment pass. He calls his disciples. He says, listen, you got to lean in. You got to listen to what I'm about to say next about what I just saw. And he says, truly, verily, verily, the King James says, truly I tell you, this poor widow has put what? More into the treasury than what? All the others. Why would he say that? Verse 44, they all gave out of their wealth, but she, out of her poverty, put in everything, all she had to live on. Now this can alternately be translated as, she gave, quote, out of the life she had. Why? Well, how many coins did she have? 2. How many did she give? Not 1, and kept it, but she gave both. Here's therefore what the widow shows us, that we can act even in the middle of an unjust system. We can act in the face of feeling forgotten. We can give even when we haven't been given to. And just because here, she shows us the temple forgot her doesn't mean she forgot the temple. Just because her own people forgot about her doesn't mean she forgot about her people. And even if she felt forgotten by God, oh, she didn't forget about him. Why? It's because she understood that when she gave, she wasn't giving to the temple alone, or to the teachers, or to the scribes, or Pharisees, or pastors, or preachers, but she understood she was giving to God as an act of worship and trust, and in doing so, by doing so, her giving here changed the world, because up till now, giving the biggest gift meant you had given the most, and you were the biggest person. But now, Jesus says, even the smallest gift can be worth more than all the others. Even the smallest person can be greater than all the rest. This woman walked up onto a stage where in many ways she did not belong. But she walked down off the stage into history, creating belonging for guess who? All of us. For all who feel unseen. For all who have been forgotten. For all who feel forsaken, she lets us know Jesus Christ sees us. You ask, well, if she hadn't have given that day, would God have still seen her? Of course, of course. But because she did give that day in spite of her feelings, she created space for us to know that God does see us. He sees you. He sees me. Every little thing we do for him and in his name. And through her giving, I love this, she created a kind of belonging for us even when, oh, it was not created for her. She lets us know that even in our feelings of forgottenness, we are still wanted, we are still honored, we are still seen by the Son of God. And Jesus sees her and he lifts her up as the paragon, as the ultimate standard of what it means to follow him in his kingdom. Why? It's because he saw in her giving a seed of what he would do in his own life just a few days later when he would give all he had, more than anyone else gave, not just out of his life. Oh, but Jesus would give all of his life, his whole life, and he would be raised up and looked up at on a platform, on a cross, 10 feet above the ground, and the humanity would despise his offering, look down on it, despise his gift, despise his broken body. I mean, what could his little lepta duo of a life do? Christ became the ultimate forgotten and forsaken person by the system, by his friends. He felt abandoned by God. The only people he belonged with at the end of his life were criminals. The whole world forgot him, but he still gave anyway. And the widow's mite, therefore, in the temple foreshadows, forecasts what Jesus' body would do on the cross. It changed the world and created space for anyone to belong to God. And hear me, when we sacrificially give to God, even in the face of our feelings, like the widow who points us to Christ, we create space for others to belong, even if and when belonging hasn't been created for us. And when we do this, like the widow's giving, we find that unexpected belonging is created now for us. Because come on, who are we talking about today? Her. She is included in Jesus' story. She belongs to his story, belongs to his gospel. For forever, 2 billion Christians across the world can read about it today on their laptops, iPhones, paper old school Bibles. See, when we move to create belonging for others, we often find, in fact, belonging is created for us. So how can we do that today? How can we move in that direction and apply what we've heard? Now, because today is a special day at Mosaic Church, I think I have an answer. And I'll give that answer in the form of a question. What if? What if one time a year here at Mosaic Church, we could collectively pool our resources and give in a way that impacted an organization in our community outside ourselves in an unforgettable way? What if we gave to something with such a scope, so generously, not connected to us, that it actually changed the course of that ministry or nonprofit or organization? What if we raised so much money for something over time, we even did better than the federal government, who's having a real hard time right now, right? What if we funded and created jobs for people who work in nonprofits who may have just had their funding cut? I mean, what if we lived big for one day and gave it away? Because that's what today is. Some of you know this. It is Live Big Sunday annually. It's a holiday here, the first Sunday in November at Mosaic Church. Now, if we did that, wouldn't that be amazing? Your answer is yes. Wouldn't that be fun? The answer is yes. Wouldn't it feel good? The answer is yes. Wouldn't you feel good knowing you were creating a space to belong for others? Yes, you would. So today I want to try to do just that. Today I want to raise, here's our goal, $48,000 in one day. Now, you say, how'd you get that number? Well, we base this on our estimated number of weekly attendees in person, in the room, online, at Mosaic South. $48,000 is our goal for a nonprofit. Here's our beneficiary. It's a nonprofit, local in Austin as always, called More Than Welcome. More Than Welcome, which has worked here in Austin since 2019. More Than Welcome supports refugees and asylum seekers and connects them both to resources and to the person of Jesus Christ. Now, while the topic sometimes of refugees and asylum seekers can be hard to talk about out there, it should not be hard to talk about in here, because our scriptures talk quite a bit about helping the poor and the helpless, like Matthew, so you can't forget it, 25:25, when Jesus says, I was a stranger and you welcomed me. The sign of a heart changed by Christ is that we welcome the strangers. That's the verse More Than Welcome was founded on, and that's what they do. They welcome strangers to the U.S. in Jesus' name. Now, it was founded by a man from East Africa, the nation of Burundi. His name is Alliance Samaragwa. There's a photo of him, even though he kind of looks serious there. He mostly smiles. But here's his story. After his best friend was killed by police in Burundi, he was tortured and left for dead. His friends and family rescued him. They feared for his life, feared as he was a witness of the crime that he would be tracked down and killed himself. So they pooled their money and got him and secured visa to the U.S. He moved here at the age of 22. He spoke no English, survived off the couches and goodness of Christians, and a dream grew in his heart, actually learn English and learn our system, to help people like himself. And he grew that dream into a ministry now, for which he works full-time, called More Than Welcome. I mean, think of all the good Alliance Samaragua has done for this city because he came here. I mean, he is helping our city in ways many of us aren't able to. Now, Texas, you should know, the state of Texas receives 10% of all refugees who come to the U.S. and are approved to come here. 10%, that's a big number. There are 12,000 here in Austin alone, more arriving daily. Now, More Than Welcome helps refugees and asylum seekers who come here to transition safely, securely, productively. They meet physical needs, meet food needs, counseling needs for those who have been traumatized by their transition. They've even started a school for children of those who come. That's amazing. They help asylum seekers and refugees find jobs. They put on summer camps for kids. They cover short-term rent costs. They seek to connect those they serve to local churches. They've served more than 40 families in the past year. They're amazing. They make Austin safer and more loving. And though we can't do everything we might want to for an organization like this, I think we can give them a day they won't forget and make a permanent difference in the lives of those in crisis. Listen, they don't know what's coming. So now that we've said More Than Welcome and Alliance, if you know them, don't tell them. And don't get out your phone. You're like, yo, guess what's happening? It's about to go down in Mosaic Church. Please don't do that. Somebody in the first service literally was a friend of his. I'm like, oh no, please don't tell them. So this can't happen. Don't post, don't know screenshot, nothing they don't know it's coming. So please let it be a surprise, okay? Don't ruin Christmas. We want to roll up with a check and a smile and impact their organization, hopefully for the long haul. Many of our past Live Big recipients have testified, we would not be here if it weren't for Mosaic Church, God working through them, and for Live Big. And therefore, honestly, if there's one reason I hope God grows this church, and there's one reason I am thankful he has grown us, is to do this. And so we are able to grow and give more and more and more away. Some of you are suspicious. You're like, do you just want to grow? I'm like, well, yeah, I do. Why? So we can do this even better and bigger. To show that the city, that the church of Jesus cares about them, and that our city is better when the church is there. So here's what I'm asking you to do. You'll be glad to know that over the year, since even though with all our economic woes, we may face and feel and be squeezed, that inflation has not infected the price to play at all. The price is still a flat, come on, $39.95. Oh yeah. And if every adult here gave $39.95, we could raise $48,000 in one day. Again, based on our number of folks here. Now we began this back in 2013 with a goal of only 10 grand. We raised $15,000 our first year. That was amazing. And last year, for Red Oak Hope, we raised, wait for it, just over $120,000. Yeah, bringing our 12-year goal to more than $700,000 this church has given away into the community. That's amazing, yeah. Now, some of you hear $39.95, you're like, great, I could give more. You should. Just add a 0 or 2. You should. That's great. Some of you can only give less. That's okay. There's no guilt here. In the past, I know maybe you have. In the future, you will, all of that. But what I am asking you to do is to participate. Really, our main goal here is participation goal. Everybody plays, all right? So as always, I'm not asking you to do what Christians do, which is to say, I'm going to pray about it. It's like, will you serve in kids ministry? We come to my house, we can meet for coffee? I'll pray about it. It always means no, so don't pray about it, okay? Just give. There's nothing really ultra spiritual. You're just going to give. So, nor I'm asking you, those of you who are watching online, because I know you're there, you're about to log off. Don't do it. We got 5 minutes left. Don't go all log off and think about it, okay? You're not going to think about it. You're actually going to give in a moment. I don't care if you're mad at the world. I don't care if you're mad at the government. You might be. I don't care if you're mad at the man. I don't care if you're mad at me. You probably are, I'm just asking you to give right here, right now, at least $39.95 a person towards this. If you're here, but your spouse isn't, well, talk to them and have them come next week. But second of all, give for them. They'll thank you too. If you're single, you can go ahead. Yeah. Sow a seed of faith for that future spouse. Praise the Lord. If you're divorced, you can sow a seed for your former spouse. Like in Jesus' name, they're going to get right? They're going to get their mind right. Lord, wreck them, right? Now, I won't mind if you give for them, and they won't know. That's the best part. So you say, what would my financial planner do? I called him on the way and got him on speed dial. He's like, yo, go ahead and give. They said they were great with this. So here's how you can do this. 3 ways. Number 1, you can go to livebigaustin.com. No text option this year. Livebigaustin.com. That URL takes you right to our giving page. Number 2, you can give on the Mosaic Church app if you have it. Number 3, some great folks with card readers in the lobby on the way out. So that's what I want you to do. Even if you're a guest today, even if this is your first time here, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I came on this day. You can't believe this is happening. Maybe you're a family member of a Mosaic person, like you came in town with them. You're working your first job, your worst job. I don't care, because if you give, listen, you're not giving to us. You're giving through us. Here's our promise: not a penny of this stays here. There's no administrative fee. There's no shipping and handling. There's no tax. All of that. Just your giving, all of it goes together to make a collective impact on a part of our city that is underfunded. All right, so you're thinking, man, does the church just want my money? The answer is yes, we do. As much as we can get of your money today for a massive way to help bless people who aren't here. And next year we plan to do it again and to be known, not just for our theology, which we take seriously, but our generosity, because after all, our generosity is a reflection actually of our theology. I don't want to be known what we're against. We got to be against stuff, but more what we're for. You say, Morgan, I already gave. There's no law against giving again, right? Yeah, you're like, there are other needs out there. There's like a million needs out there. You say, Morgan, I run a nonprofit. I want to tell you, I run a nonprofit too. I could use this, but this isn't about that, all right? You say, well, I'll catch the next one. Well, this is the next one. You said you would catch the last time when you said you were going to catch the next one, all right? You say, I'm about to move, about to relocate. Morgan, I'm real mad. Sermon was terrible. This is my last Sunday at this church. Sorry, but great. You can be a blessing on the way out the door, okay? All right. And when you go home, people ask you, what'd you give today? You're like, I live big, we live big. Somebody asks you, what'd you do in church? We live big, we gave it all away. Would you stand on your feet with me as we think about all the good we can be known for? A church that wants to bless the city of Austin, all right? So we're going to close real quick. No piano, no song. Just the airbags are falling out of the ceiling real quick. Going to land the plane ultra fast. Lord, would you help us now to be a blessing? Would you create a kind of Mosaic miracle today and enable us to be a blessing, and out of what you've given to us, respond in kind. Thank you for creating belonging for us in your kingdom. Help us to do the same for others. I pray this in Christ's name. All God's people today said amen. Go be great, go live big.